how did you get to New York City?
I was living in Oakland in Fruitvale, and I was kind of like running a little bit of a slumlord situation. I was renting this real piece of shit from my boss's buddy's boss, whatever. And I had 4 people that were living with me, and my rent was almost abated by the fact that I had so many like kind of subtenants. And I had a friend living, a high school buddy living here in New York, and she was a real estate agent. She called me up and was like, "Hey man, I've known you've always wanted to live in New York. I'm moving. Do you want my spot?" And I was like, "Yes, done." And she was like, "You need to be here in 2 months." And I was like, "Right on." Sight unseen. I was like, "Let's go." And so I sold everything, sold my car, and I was living actually out of that 4Runner for about those 2 months because I had to get out. My lease was up, and I cleaned out my studio, shipped everything on pallets. And then I showed up in New York to an empty apartment with nothing.
Wow.
And I was expecting New York to be like, "Oh, open arms, welcome. Finally, you're here." And I found out quickly that New York doesn't give a shit. Everyone's an artist. Everyone's making cool shit. And I'm not special. But it has also been so welcoming once I kind of like, settled in a little bit. The amount that New York does open its arms to you, like the more you put in, the more you get out kind of. So I came with no job, no idea what I was going to do. I was like, I'm going to sell art full time. I'm going to just go knock on gallery doors and just be accepted right away. And I ended up becoming an artist assistant in Red Hook. So I was biking from Bed-Stuy to Red Hook every day. I got super slim, which was great. And I was this artist assistant for a couple of years. A guy named Joseph LaPiana makes big, beautiful abstract work. And it was very different than the work I was making, which is cool because I was always a representational painter and I didn't really understand very much about abstract work. And the more I spent time with his work, and I was doing a lot of the underpainting, doing a lot of the like helping him with ideas and composition, and they were huge. And it was so cool because I really got to like fall in love with the idea of less representational work. And it was awesome, man. So I was working there, and he ended up during the pandemic moving up to Hudson. So I helped him move up to Hudson, New York. And then after that, I was like, well, my job just left. Yeah. So the guys that were moving his work were this art handling company. And I was like, "Hey man, if you guys ever need a hand, let me know." And about 6 months later, I got a phone call out of the blue saying, "Hey man, you want to work tomorrow?" And I was like, "Who the fuck is this?" Yeah. This unknown number asking me if I want jobs tomorrow. And I was like, "Sure, sign me up." And I was at an auction house installing work. And that's kind of what led me to the art handling day job, which has been such a gift.
What was your impression of New York before you got here?
I really thought, so I'm from Colorado, and then I went to school in California, and then I lived there for 6 years post-college. And I was like, they're going to eat my ass up. I'm a soft West Coast boy. Yeah. And I thought it was going to be so much harder and like so much, not more difficult, but like so much less welcoming. And everyone I met was incredible, super kind, I guess. They always say like, West Coast is nice, but East Coast is kind. So it's like if you're on the side of the road and you have a flat tire, someone on the West Coast will be like, "Oh, that's so sad. Good luck." But on the East Coast, they're like, "Get out of the way. You don't know how to change a tire? Let me fix that for you." It's like they'll do the kind thing, but not necessarily be nice about it. And that's kind of what my experience has been. Everyone has been super real and super kind. Like, they see that you're hustling. They want to help you. And if you're doing the thing, it's like people will kind of get on board and be a part of it. And I really thought I was going to just get chewed up. But if you're also hustling, then you fit right in.
I'd love to hear about your art and your art process. Were you always wired to do this? I'd love to hear about your upbringing, your childhood. Were you always drawn to artistic work?
Yes, I was always making work, and I was, throughout high school, I made a lot of work, and I was never the best, like technical skill wise. And then into college, I studied fine art history. And I was still, never the best in the class, but I wanted it really bad, I think. And so I was always like putting in extra hours, staying late, doing extra projects, like finding other ways I could like get involved and like hone skills. And one of my college professors was talking about just getting miles behind the pencil, man. You just got to put in graphite miles. And I was like, I'm never going to not make it because I didn't work hard enough, or I didn't put in enough hours in the studio or whatever. It's like, if I can do one thing, it's outwork everybody. It's not going to be because I was lazy, you know, or because I didn't try hard enough or put in the time. So yeah, I kind of always was making work on the mid tier, and I really think it was just by sheer ambition and just like wanting it more. And this is the thing I love to do. So I say like ambition, but really being in the studio is where I want to be. Yeah. And it's like, if I can somehow make money out of doing that, great. But like, I'm just in there because it's where I enjoy it the most. It's like both a place to like work stuff out. It's my therapy, and also like sanctuary, and also hiding place, and also like laboratory. It's like all the things, but like it's kind of where I prefer to be. So yeah, I grew up being middle of the pack, and then I just enjoy it, you know? And when I told my parents, I was like, I'm gonna study fine art. They were like, maybe architecture, or like maybe, you know, design. And I was like, yeah, we'll see. And the fact that I'm able to like have any kind of financial compensation out of this is fantastic. It's like a gift.
Where do you think the drive to work that hard at this thing comes from?
I mean, kind of twofold. Is like, one, it's just the thing I like to do the most. Yeah. So it's like, if I can find an excuse to do it, the excuse being it's my job, it's like, well, I have to be in the studio because it's my job. And it's like, I just get to do it, really. It's like the fact that I can call it a job gives me the permission almost to be in the studio. And like, I get to like have an excuse to be in there because it's like I'm working. Yeah. And so that's one half. And the other is like, in a job like this, there's no one that's going to hold you accountable except for yourself. If I fail, if I don't make work for 6 months, no one gives a shit. Yeah. I am the only one that like either benefits or suffers from my lack of studio hours. So that's twofold. It's like, again, going back to like, I'm never going to let my lack of hard work be the reason I don't make it. Is like, I am the hardest boss I'm ever going to have, you know? So one is like, it's fun. I get to play in the studio all the time. But two, it's like the fear, I guess, or the wolf pack chasing me through the graveyard or the junkyard. The junkyard dogs is, it's like that fear of failure from not working hard enough is also what keeps me in there. It's like, I'll be in the studio so that I don't have this gap in my creative practice, because that's, it's me as manager managing me as studio worker, being like, hey man, production time. Yeah. It's time to go. So I guess it's a little bit of both, like the junkyard dogs and the like, it's just really where I get to play, you know? So it's great.
You were saying you wanted to go pursue fine art, to study fine art. Did you have a sense of where you wanted your career to go in terms of the type of art you wanted to create?
No. And you know, it's interesting. In the last couple of years, it's changed a lot, and it was a real weight lifted off my shoulder, but there was a little bit of a crisis of identity that came along with it. I kind of studied fine arts, and I kind of focused on representational work, and I took a lot of like anatomy classes and portraiture and like figure drawing, and I was like trying to hone this. I was doing my senior thesis was these giant wall-sized installations that were all portraits. Hyper realist, think like Chuck Close style, realism with graphite direct on gallery walls. And they were like interacting with the space. It was really interesting. But as I've kind of so my career, I thought, was headed towards this representational, portrait based, work. And as I've kind of seen a lot more art, and kind of my horizons have broadened as to what is out there. And I think really working in art handling and working with that artist I assisted, I kind of got to see what else was out there in ways that like I wasn't expecting. And so I was like, oh man, I really like this work, where I'd never kind of given myself permission to see the other side. I was like, oh man, you're just not trying very hard if you're not like a draftsman. If you're not a technician at your craft, then it felt lazy to me. But I was just, I think, really naive in terms of what that looked like and like what it was to actually make interesting abstract work. So it was a real blind spot. And then these last couple of years, I was making these backgrounds. So I was doing underpaintings using collage and using a lot of like patterning and using a lot of just like big abstract color field ideas. And at a certain point, they kind of started standing up compositionally on their own. And I had a real hard time like accepting that they were finished. And there's a gallery I work with, and they were like, dude, these are great. We'll sell these. Like they had taken me on as a representational painter, and they kind of like helped give me permission, I guess, to follow this this series that I was working on. And it was such a gift to be able to like lean into this and have a place for them to go. Because otherwise I was kind of making them in secret and being like, well, is it finished? Is it not finished? And just like putting it in the painting rack. And now that they had a place that I could like get rid of them, and it wasn't just like me experimenting in the studio for myself, having this outlet for them gave me permission to kind of dive in. And again, like letting go of that idea that like what I make is representational work was scary, because I'd kind of built this identity for myself as an artist, as like a technician of realism. At a certain point though, I was never going to be the best. I was never going to be Chuck Close. And there's so many people who are incredible at this thing, like this, just being a draftsman, being someone who makes incredibly realist representational work is a skill set that like I was good at, but I was never going to be the best at. And there's something that the Flaming Lips said. They're like, yo, we're never going to be the best rock band, but we're going to put on a fucking show. We'll put on the best show you've ever seen. It's like, why am I trying so hard to be the best at this thing that like I don't really care that much about? And I'm having so much more fun doing these more loose, these more gestural, these more playful. Like a lot of my work now is so much more playful, which is more authentic to myself than the more serious, like draftsman based work, that it feels a lot more authentic. And I think the work shows that, and it's been reflected in like how it's been received. It's been received really well, and it feels great. Like people come to the art fairs and like there's laughter and like they're like, oh, you see this little joke in here? Like the collage will kind of speak to itself. And it's like, that's something that was really missing in my previous work, where it was just very stoic, very like really good job. It looks exactly like the thing it's supposed to look like. But I think a lot more of the playfulness has been able to come through, and it's been super fun.
I'd love to go back to the moment when you actually decided to come here, living in your Forerunner and then coming into an empty apartment. How did you begin? I know you mentioned you had this part-time job eventually, which helped with, I'm sure, paying some bills, but how did you go about trying to begin to create opportunities for yourself here? Was it get a studio first? Was it meeting artists? What did you do from the jump when you got to New York?
So, I had a buddy out here that you actually spoke to recently, and he was kind of, so I had an empty apartment, really like full rewind. I had an empty apartment, and I was like, what I'm going to do is do this thing called Art Lab, which I'd kind of started in college. I was the studio shop manager, and all my friends that weren't art majors wanted a place to make artwork. And I was like, dude, well, I'm sitting in this empty sculpture studio with all these tools for hours a day. Come up and hang out. Like if none of the art majors wanted to work at that time, I was just alone doing my own work. So I started having my friends that were non-art majors come up and be like, yeah, man, you can use these tools, and like, I'll teach you how to do this thing, or like, how do you use this material or whatever. So I kind of moved that into what I was doing out here with this empty apartment. I was like, well, I have a space. I don't have any furniture. I had like a couch, and I had this giant spool I found outside of Home Depot as a coffee table. And I just threw all that shit in one room. And then I had basically a white cube gallery. My buddy Sean came over and we painted the whole thing gallery white. And then I was putting up different artists' work once a month. And it was a way that I could like dive in as much as I could into the emerging artist scene, make a bunch of friends, and then meet their community as this like host. I only ended up doing like 3 or 4 months, because artists are horrible to work with. I would schedule, I would plan all this stuff, I'd promote it, and then they'd be like, oh, sorry, I forgot, and not show up the day of or whatever. So I did a couple of them. it was really fun, really great way for me to kind of dive in. I met a lot of really cool people, but after, I think about 6 months, I was like, Doc, I cannot live like this. And it was a lot of work, man. I was moving everything out of my living space into my bedroom and then moving it all back afterwards. And once I started to accumulate furniture, thanks New York street fines, it was a lot harder. And it was just the corralling of these cats that are artists was just impossible. But it was really fun, and it was kind of a really cool way to dive in, and it gave me a lot of empathy for people who are curators or who do put on these big shows. It's like, man, this is a ton of work. But yeah, it was really fun, and that's kind of how I started diving in, and then really doing a lot of art fairs. I did a couple different fairs out here, and I mean, when you're at an art fair, it's like 4 days, you in a booth. And when it's not busy, I'm just talking to all the other guys around me.
Yeah.
And I met a lot of really cool people that way. A lot of collectors, sold some work, especially when I first moved out here. I wasn't really sure how to sell work. But it's been, now I'm still doing the fairs out here, and I'm doing one in Chicago this year. I did last year too. And the fairs are great if you know what you're doing, kind of, and like how it works, what the like end goal is. I was just happy to be having a show when I first moved out here. I was like, this is great. Look at all these artists. Look at all these people. But now it's been, I've kind of like professionalized a little bit, and it's been really successful.
What have you learned about what's important in terms of how to navigate an art fair, and anything else you want to add about how to sell? What
God, if I knew, man, if I knew how to sell.
This is the holy grail, but
yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. It's funny because every time I think I know the answer, I do that thing and sell nothing. So, grain of salt, but like I've kind of done different things. And I think really the most important thing is just to be like authentic. When I first came out, I was like, all right, I'm going to pack the booth. So there's as much stuff as possible for people to see. And it just feels crowded. It feels crazy. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to do less. And then I would just bring big pieces, and people were like, oh, do you have anything smaller? So one year I brought a bunch of small stuff. And now I mean, the last couple of years, I've just been bringing the studio. So I will bring my studio rug and the chair that I paint in, and I'll bring all my paints, and I'll just work in the studio.
Interesting.
And one, it's kind of like a spectacle. And yes, there's a little bit of a performative aspect, but like sometimes it's slow and I'm just sitting there and it sucks. So like I kind of bring as much authenticity from the studio as I can. And it has been way more successful than me trying to think about what people are going to want to buy, or trying to think about the end goal or the end consumer. How is it going to be seen? Or like, are they going to want small stuff, big stuff, prints, not prints? That said, prints do sell really well because it's something you can buy for a couple $100, and it's like you don't have to check your bank account before you buy $200 worth of prints. But if you're buying a $5,000 painting, you might gotta call your wife or husband. But really, it's just the more genuine I am to who I am in the studio, what the work is about, the more fun it's been. And like letting go, I think, of the idea of like trying to make sales has allowed me to make more sales, and treating people who are interested as just people who are interested in buying paintings and not so precious. I used to like wear a blazer and like dress up, and that's just not really who I am. Yeah. And people approach me and they're like, hey, what about this and this? And I'll talk to them like people instead of like, oh man, I got to like really suck up to this guy because he might buy a painting. It's like, if he's going to buy a painting, it's not going to matter whether I suck up or not.
Yeah.
But it's been, again, freeing, man. I think this, it's been just such a journey from, I think, the performative aspect of the work changing too. So instead of like trying to be the best representational painter and being more genuine in the work, it has been really, really well received as well. So it's like, I get to show up in the studio as myself, right? And then that translates to in the fair as myself because it's reflected in the work. And it's like, I'm not putting on some sort of costume to sell this work that is kind of like something that wasn't really as authentic.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Which means it's probably enduring. It's something that you can maintain over a longer period of time.
Yeah. And it's more fun, man. It's like I have more fun making it than the viewer is going to have more fun looking at it and interacting with it. And like the more fun I'm having in the studio, the more fun it's going to be in your house or whatever. Like you're going to enjoy it more if I'm enjoying the process more, I think.
Do you find that if you do the live drawings, at these art fairs that people are more inclined to approach you. Does that really, have you found that works just in terms of engaging with the people who are there?
Yeah, it's a spectacle for sure. Like people are like, oh, look at this guy. He's actually doing it. Or like, look, it's happening. So like, yes. And I feel like it also doesn't like lead to sales. It's really, again, just more for me being like, hey man, I'm kind of bored in here. So like I'm doing just sketches of my neighbor's booth or whatever, or working on a piece that's half finished. And like, again, I'm trying to remove the like idea of like doing things for the end goal of sales, because every time I try and do that, it falls flat. And then every time I'm just more like, hey man, I'm just doing this for me because I got 4 days to kill in a event space, and I could be in the studio right now, because that's what I would always think is like, I could be in the studio right now and I'm just sitting in this fucking booth.
Yeah.
And if I could be in the studio for 4 days, sick. So like, I'll just bring the studio, do some work. If I get some work done, cool. If not, then like, that's okay too. At least I got to kind of have the option for when it's slow. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question on like what leads to sales, it's like beats me, but being genuine has never led away from sales, I guess.
I think before we started recording, you used the phrase feast or famine.
Yeah.
Typically in the art world, which I think I've heard many, many times.
When it rains, it pours, baby.
I'd love to hear about that. Like, I don't know, any stories that come to mind of a real famine and then just something coming through. There does seem to be a randomness to this. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No,
it
of
seems
course.
Like that is sort of the world and the economics of it being an artist.
Yeah, I think that is true. So part of it is like when things are hitting, it's great. And like, maybe I have a show that goes really well. So I have a couple galleries that I work with. And so every year I'm shipping out a couple crates in the beginning of summer usually, or springtime. And then like, I'll get a trickle throughout the year from these galleries. And it's like, those are great because I have nothing to do with it. It's like, I just get a paycheck when they sell a piece, and that's awesome. And then if I could just have more of those, they just kind of come in regularly, but they're also based like seasonally. So like summertime, 4th of July, like a lot of these galleries will sell a lot more work. And then like right during the fair or after the fair, I'll usually have a spike in sales. Or like if I have a show, I'll have a spike in sales, but then there's these like kind of seeds I planted years ago that'll come back. Or I saw someone at a show this summer, and they'll come around in the winter and be like, hey man, we're finally ready. Our renovation is done. We're ready to get that piece now. Like, or we chatted with you and we were thinking about you. I ran into a friend of mine. I went to dinner with a non-art world friend. She was a high school friend that I hadn't seen in forever. And we were having dinner with some of her friends. It came up that I was an artist, and she was like, let me see your work. I pulled up my Instagram. She's like, I've seen your work before. We chatted at this fair and I wanted to get a piece. It never happened. And I'm so glad I saw you again, because I would have totally never thought about it. And she ended up buying a piece last week. It just got picked up and delivered. But like, it's these, I think being in the art world long enough, or just, kind of, I'm still here, baby.
Yeah.
If you can outlast those like feast and famine times, then like the seeds you plant years ago kind of come back, and you can, keep reaping the benefits of just like being around still, making work still. I had a gallery in Texas that just hit me up. This guy was working in LA and he loved my work. We met at a gallery opening and it never worked out, probably 3 years ago. And then he just got a new job as the painting director at this gallery in Texas and was like, I want to get some of your work. You still making work? And it's like, I didn't contact him, but like it comes back around. So I mean, being able to like withstand the famine times so that when things kind of keep hitting, you're still out here making work, you're still in the game. And I think a lot of people end up like getting a day job or like not making as much work or being out of the swing of things. And that's where those like seeds you planted, they're not able to be sown or repped. If you're still out here making work, then the opportunities that are long-term just kind of come back.
Do you think that speaks to what you alluded to earlier of just the passion of knowing you fucking love doing this and that you can endure through those famine times, that you will be in this game for as long as you're alive? Yeah,
I mean, and I think that's kind of like a hallmark of someone who's like doing it because they're passionate and someone who's doing it as a job. It's like, I'm not going to, like, the fact that I get paid for this is sick. And I'm not doing it because like this is my job and like I decided to be an artist because it's a great stable income. It's like it can't be the way you think about it if you're just coming out of the booth, like I'm going to be doing this, and all the artists I know that even if they're struggling or successful or whatever, it's like they've just been doing it forever because like this is the thing that you do. Like if I'm not in the studio for a couple of days, I start to get kind of antsy. Like I bring like a watercolor sketchbook when we go on vacation because I just need to like sketch this barn real quick or it's like, get a little fix, but like, yeah, man, if I'm not making something for a couple of days, I start to kind of freak out a little bit. I feel cagey, and it's the drive to like make stuff that keeps me in this game, not the fact that there's any kind of financial benefit, because so often there's not, it's like, I'm just lucky that I get to dedicate so much of my life to this because I'm able to get paid for it. So there's, again, that excuse to be like, well, I gotta be in the studio. It's my job. It's kind of just like a luxury that I never really expected.
How important is it to you to be physically in New York City?
See, that's a great question because I'm paying so much money. Yeah, everyone is, just to be here. And I think there's something really cool about the energy of the city. And like, it's really inspiring just walking around. There's so much, it's just so rich and so vibrant of a place. And there's so many people doing so many cool things that it's cool to be a part of that. And like, I'm pulling like wheat pastes off of subway signs because this has really great text that I want to use as collage. Like there's so much cool shit here that I wouldn't be able to find anywhere else, or just like seeing street art or like people's tags or something, or like the mark making on subway tiles. Like that shit's interesting. So part of it is, one, the cultural vibrancy of just being here is sick. However, if I was to have some sort of like, if I was able to have enough gallery support to move out of the city, you could, in theory, work anywhere. So I could have a house with a big barn studio in Montana and be just like shipping work out to galleries all the time. Like that would also be very cool. But I think for me now, being here is important because of the shit like this. Like I'm doing a podcast 20 minutes away from my house because you're here. And like the things that are happening here there's so many of them, there's just so many things that are happening, and like the opportunities available don't exist. If I had my barn Montana studio, there's not a chance I would be doing a podcast 20 minutes from my house.
In that alternative reality where you have a barn in Montana, could you see yourself thriving in that context? Let's say you did have enough demand to create work and pay your bills and have, I'm sure, a much bigger home and a bigger piece of land. Can you envision yourself in that context feeling like you're thriving as an artist and as a person?
Yes, totally, man. But I think there would also have to be, because I'm like in this scenario, there's enough demand for the work that I'm still kind of plugged in culturally. And I think the fear is like, you move upstate, you move to Hudson or whatever, where a bunch of artists have been going. It's like the fear is that you end up being an island of this, like trying to stay culturally relevant in a place that is like a sleepy backwater is, I guess, scary. But if you're still plugged in some capacity, there's the possibility for you to keep making work and being culturally relevant. But I think I would always want to have some sort of a foot in some kind of metropolitan or cosmopolitan scene, I think if I were to move to the barn studio idea, it's like I would also want to be involved in a community here, a community that's keeping me involved and up to date, and like, having kind of a finger on the pulse of what's going on in the art world, because I think that's something that I get here that I wouldn't be able to get there. It's really interesting. And it's like being able to see the new stuff that's happening and seeing what's moving at galleries and seeing what auction houses are getting rid of a lot. It's like, that's really interesting to me. And it'd be very hard to keep that finger on the pulse if I was just kind of in a echo chamber or like into the void, painting into the void,
You were talking earlier about the flakiness that you have periodically would experience with, you putting on these events and people bailing at the last minute. I there is a stereotype about artists that they're a bit like that. They're kind of like the artistic version of like an absent-minded professor. They're just sort of in their own world.
Yeah.
How do you make sense of that quality in artists? I don't get the sense you have that quality, or else you wouldn't be this organized.
Sure. Yeah.
But like, have you? I'd love to just have you speak about that. About what, if you've consistently noticed that quality in the artists that you've come across. I certainly have in the last year.
Yeah.
That there seems to be this massive personality trait of deep curiosity and openness, and a lack of often like a corollary conscientiousness going together, which is sort of the stereotypical artist caricature. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
I mean, I think a lot of the artists I know have ADD and are prone to bouts of hyperfixation. And it's like, I'm guilty of that as well. It's like, I will be like, all right, I'm going to wrap this up, get out of the studio for the night. And then 3 hours later, I'm like, where the fuck did the night go? You know, cause I'll find this thing and it's like kind of hitting, I think that, I don't know, man, like sometimes people are super disorganized. I think things that I've noticed is like we spoke a little bit earlier before we started recording about like how I hate doing social media. I hate checking my emails. I hate doing all these things that are almost painful to me. Like just doing the admin work of life is like pulling teeth. And I think that I find in common with a lot of artists. It's like, dude, I've got one buddy who every time he has to send an invoice, he's 6 months trying to get this thing out. I'm like, dude, this is you trying to get paid. Like you got to get this out the door. But just doing the small tasks like that, maybe it's a left brain, right brain thing. I'm not sure, but like locking down insurance for me is like, man, you could put like hot coals to my feet and I'd be like, I don't want to do it. It's just like a physical, it's just tough for me to do, man. It's my least favorite thing. And I think a lot of artists kind of have that in common, where it's like making stuff with your hands, like producing, and the act of like sticking to a schedule or maintaining. But then again, I also have a lot of artist friends who are really, really dialed. And I think that also will show up in their work. So it'll be like a more, like I have a buddy who does kind of like mathematical abstraction. It's like, dude is computer science. I also have a friend who makes stuff with like a 3D plotter. So it's like it's kind of like a CNC machine that he can put like a paint brush in or like a marker in, and it'll like do some computer algorithm to send to this plotter that's on the floor, and it'll like sketch out whatever he's kind of like coded into the system. And it's like, that dude is dialed, and like he is organized, and he runs a real estate company on the side. Like he's doing all kinds of crap, but it's the work he's making is kind of more in tune with him, like being at a computer and like, I don't know, working out this algorithmic and like code-based art process. Yeah. And his work is really cool. Yeah.
I would think for the absent-minded artist, there might maybe just internally, there's such a strong calling to create that everything else is just seemingly so much less important, like getting insurance or responding to an email or a text. And it's just like, they can't really pay attention to that other stuff because there's just such an overwhelming drive to make something.
I mean, you would hope, right? Like, so that's kind of the idea of, I think the person who's like truly driven to create. I think there's a lot of people who really like the idea of being an artist and who do create work, but like the creating of work is more job based than it is more just like, it's like, I want to be in the studio. But they're like, I have to make some more work because like I've been making a lot of content, but not a lot of like work. I think for those people, the like drive to create is less strong than someone who's just really just loves being in the studio. It's like, that's where the magic really happens, is like in the fuck ups, in the just hours experimenting and trying something and having it not work and painting over something, and like the like pencil miles, man. It's like you just need to be like, being in the studio is the thing that's going to lead to the breakthrough that you can't really get if it's like, all right, man, Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 11 p.m. is like when I'm doing studio time, and I need that to be very productive. is like, that's a different type of work because you don't leave room for error and experimentation and like the wild anomalies that end up being like, damn, that's kind of cool, man. Like, I really like how that looks. It's just me fucking around in the studio and like blasting music and being like, oh man, like I'm feeling different than if I was like, all right, man, I got 2 hours and I have to produce X amount of paintings this month, whatever. It's like having just like boundless time and like letting it run and like letting it rip in there. It's like, that's where I find the fun stuff happening. So I think those people that are really just like enjoying the process, like the creation of work itself is the end goal. It's like those people doing the admin work of being an artist or really just like running an adult human life in America. It takes away from that time. And it's like, that's the time that like is really hard to segment into like, okay, it's admin time now. And like me sitting down at the computer and like uploading work to the website or like updating my inventory sheet or like responding to emails, even though that's equally, if not more important, because like
it allows all the rest of it to happen.
If you can't see my work on Instagram or on my website or whatever, or like emailing galleries, like if you can't see it, it's like a tree falls in the forest type of deal. But it's not as fun, that's for sure. And I think for me, at least, I can't speak for other artists, but like I would always rather be making work. And that's when the time disappears. I try to push painting off in the day until I've like done some of those tasks, because like I'll look up and it's 6 hours later and I'm like, fuck man, I had shit I wanted to do today. Yeah. But now it's 10 PM and like, I gotta like start, wrapping up or whatever. So I'll like push painting until I've like knocked out X tasks. I just like ordered a bunch of stuff for this, for these fairs, the Chicago fair. I like got more business cards and like just admin ticky tacky bullshit that like I have to do. Like I have to get business cards, order prints. I have to do a lot of these things to like prep for the fair. But like I'll do that first, because if I start painting, then it'll be midnight before I know it. And like I won't have done that today. And both are frustrating.
I'd love to get your comments on where you come down on the importance of talent versus work ethic, because you've alluded to the amount of work that you have seemingly happily put into this over the years, and that you weren't always the best. Anything you want, I'm sure you think about this quite a bit, but I'd be curious to get your thoughts on how much talent in your mind is really required to be able 10 years later to be able to be doing what you're doing. How do you think about that?
So I think talent is often lazy because you don't need to work as hard. So like if you're just super good at something, it's like it comes so much easier. Whereas the dude that had to like really fucking grind it out is just putting in more hours, and they often will like want it more if they're chasing this thing, So like if there's a really talented artist who doesn't really care about being an artist, then they don't need to try as hard, and often it'll show up in just not really like chasing the same thing, But like the guy who really wants to be an artist and is like willing to kind of like put in the hours, it's like that guy's still going to be around in 10 years. Whereas the talented guy just might be, it takes a lot, even if you're really talented, it takes a lot to like make it a job. So it's like, if you are really talented, but you just don't care as much as the guy who's willing to update the website, who's willing to contact galleries, who's willing to like, just keep making work, putting it out there, doing the thing. It's like the hard work is going to like put you past the like hump of the like barriers to entry, I suppose. Whereas like if you're just talented and you don't really like, if you're not hungry as much as someone who's a little hungrier, it's like that hunger is going to put you over. Whereas if you don't have it, like you just don't care as much. I think it'll always pay off to be the guy who's hungrier, and harder working and longer hours, like first in, last leave. It's like that guy's always going to be, I mean, not always though, like I'm going to check myself and not be like, some people just, if you don't have any talent, then like I've seen guys being like, man, I'm going to quit my day job, and they're really hungry, but it's like, man, you just maybe don't quit your day job. Cause like sometimes people just don't have it. And so I don't know if there is like a simple rule that we can kind of like land on. But like for me, I've always thought like hard work is not going to be the reason I don't make it.
Yeah. The baseline requirement to have at least some talent. And I'm trying to think about somebody who's young who might be listening to this, who is in high school or college and they want to move to New York at some point and try to become an artist. How they might reality check themselves as to whether they have the minimum required talent to give it a shot. And I don't know if you have any rules of thumb on this. I would think probably from a young age, having adults pull you aside and say like you have something here, or this is really excellent. Some indication is probably required from an external source that's not your parents, that hasn't been solicited, that isn't biased towards you, to provide some positive feedback. I don't know where you come down on this in terms of how you can assess how much really baseline level talent you need to do something kind of insane like trying to become a New York artist.
Totally. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Because there's like a fine line between this kind of like ruthless belief in self that borders on like psychopathy, where you're like, I just have to believe no matter what anybody says, really, because you have to believe in yourself more than anybody else. And it's like, there has to be a baseline of like, I know this is good, but I think it's really hard because it has to be almost like blind faith, because if I see it and no one else does, then maybe it's just not that good. Yeah. But also you have to be like, man, I'm gonna get this thing, and like I'm going for it no matter what anybody says. And I think if that's the case, you are going to be putting in all these hours and being willing to like let your the stuff you're making evolve, and like being willing to take in new sources of inspiration and like seeing what's out there. And I think seeing a lot of work is really important. But like being flexible, I suppose, like you have the goal and then like you're kind of like working towards that, but like the means to the end don't necessarily have to look like, all right, man, if I was still making the shit I was making in high school or college, even, I wouldn't be where I am. It's like the willingness to be adaptable and like have the conversation with myself, like, hey man, maybe this isn't working, and letting go of that was like the biggest asset to my growth, was like kind of letting go of this thing that I thought I was. However, I don't know if there's a real way to like quantify like, man, you need X talent, because I think a lot of people will be like, man, you're so talented. And it's like, dog, you know how much time I've put into this to be like, quote unquote, talented. It's like, this is a ton of hard work. And like, I couldn't draw a stick figure. It's like, if you put in 10,000 hours, you could. And it's like, if it doesn't come innately, it's like, if you want to learn how to draw anatomy, like draw a lot of anatomy and like become better. But I think being realistic with yourself and having like an eye for like looking at your work non-objectively or non-subjectively, looking at it with a clear eye and being like, hey, like this, I need this to be better, and like working on that thing, or like I need this part of my toolkit to be a little bit more refined, or maybe I'm too tight, and like being honest with yourself about what your work actually looks like is really hard, but super necessary. And having mentors that you can trust who are going to be honest with you, and like having critiques, or friends that'll be like, hey man, it's not personal, but I think you could benefit from X. And then choosing who you believe in those moments too. Cause like there's some people who, I don't give a fuck what you think, man. Like I don't care. But then there's other people whose opinion I really respect, but I'm like, I will take that in and then either choose to use it or not. But being able to have conversations that might be uncomfortable, but like are necessary, because you gotta have thick skin. And who do you listen to?
Did you have feedback yourself that gave you a degree of confidence that you had the prerequisite talent at a young age? How did you believe that you could potentially make it?
Right. I mean, I think I just really like doing it. And so I went, I did it all through high school, and then into college. I was undecided in my major, and I went to a liberal arts college that was great. And it was in Los Angeles and Pasadena, and they had a partnership with the Art Center in Pasadena, the Art Center College of Design, great art school. And they would let you like take like they're like sister schools, I guess. And so I could take Art Center classes with my Oxy student membership, I guess, which was a gift. And I took as many classes as I could through the Art Center. But the reason I like chose art as my field was I was just drawing in all my other classes anyway. My notebooks were just full of drawings. I wasn't taking notes. I was a horrible student in other ways, but they were just full of sketches. And I was like, dude, if I'm paying all this money to like go to a college, I might as well get really good at this thing I'm just doing anyway.
Yep.
So I started, doing it. I started it as my major and then taking the art center classes. And I had a couple professors that were really incredible. And one of which was dating a Rolling Stone a writer for Rolling Stone. And there was a lot of really amazing lectures, but in he was like, someone asked a question about inspiration and he was like, I don't really have time for inspiration. I'm putting out 4 pieces a week, whether they're good or not, doesn't really matter. But like, I'm a professional writer. Like this is my job. And so if I'm putting out 4 pieces, if I'm inspired, great. If I'm not, they're going to be good. But if it is like, the existential, like touching God piece that like I'm hoping for every time, maybe not, but like I'm putting out these pieces every week and it's like I'm putting pen to paper. And for me, that translates to like, I'm in the studio every day, whether or not I'm making the piece that is, the next inspired piece doesn't really matter, because if I'm standing in front of a canvas with a paintbrush in my hand and inspiration decides to visit me this day, the odds of this painting being better are much greater if I'm in front of a canvas instead of like out in the world doing X, Y, and Z. It's like, I don't really have a choice about whether or not I write or paint or whatever your chosen field is. It's like, you just make work.
Yeah.
And when you're inspired, you happen to be making work that day. So it works out great. But I mean, the myth of inspiration being like, it just came to me and I just went to the studio and pulled out this stuff. It's like, no, if you're in front of the canvas and it happens, great. But I think that also is studio hours. It's like being in there so that when something starts to work or like you're feeling a vibe, like you're already making shit. You don't have to pull your shit out from under the bed or in the closet and like find your easel. It's like you're already in the space doing the thing. When you are inspired, it's like that's when the cool shit happens. So I don't know. I had certain professors that were like, I did a summer internship with one of my professors and kind of saw her as a professional artist and like what this actually looks like to make work on a large scale for a gallery. And I was like, holy shit, people actually do this as a job.
Yeah.
Like this is a real thing that people can do. And I graduated and I went back home for like 6 months before I moved out to San Francisco. And I'm like painting in my mom's garage, huge pieces. My dad is a contractor and he helped me like build stretcher bars out of 2x4s. And one of my mom's friends was like, you got to move out to San Francisco. I got this artist that you can work with. And I just hounded her for months. And she was finally like, all right, come on out. And I worked for her for 6 years. I managed her studio. It was great. And then I got the New York call. But throughout that all, it was like, I'm just going to be making work all the time, inspired or not. And then, it just becomes a practice. That's why it's like the studio practice is like, it's not a thing that every time it's going to feel great. And often it doesn't, but it's about the practice of being in here and like finding the rhythm of the work and like having the conversation with each painting. And sometimes they're kind of dancing with you and sometimes they're not. Yeah, man, I don't think there was ever a professor that was like, you can do this if you want, but they were like, if you want to do this, you just make the work and like, you just keep making the work. And I think, I had kind of like early success in really selling one of my first paintings. I was like, holy shit. I sold for $1,000. It was big. It was like a 6x5 hyper realistic oil painting of my friend Bianca. And I was like, holy shit, this is actual real money. Like this is, and at the time I was like living in a co-op and like, I had never really sold like a big piece before. I'd sold little stuff, but this was the first like oil painting that I was like, holy shit, this is a check for $1,000, man. This is crazy. Like you can actually just do this.
Yeah.
And, I guess having like some success, I was like, well, let's see where this goes, and seeing my professors doing it, some of which actually got like, fairly well known, was really inspiring, being like, there are people, like they're real people that do this and it's not, and like I have a relationship with them and like they're, tangible. Whereas these people I was studying were, kind of mythological sized, but like seeing my professors as real humans that were actually making money and like, they were teaching also, but like they have museum shows and it's like, oh, this is a thing that actual people do was inspiring in itself.
You had some models for
exactly.
Given the randomness that we've talked about of making a sale, and I want you to add anything you think I'm missing. I mean, it seems like loving the work, just continuously creating and making work, arguably being in a connected city where you're able to meet a lot of people and expand your network, and just sort of letting that ride in the compounding interest of doing that for many years just increases the probability that eventually you'll get a random message from somebody who wants to put your work in some gallery in Texas or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there is kind of that is a reason to be in New York. You asked earlier, like, could you do this elsewhere? And it's like, at the point I'm at in my career now, I think it would be a lot harder because like I met you through a friend, like I had a recommendation from a buddy to go do this thing or that thing, or like, you got to meet this guy. And it's like being a part of a community like that makes it significantly easier. And I think the longevity of like still doing this, and I still have friends from different fairs. But I really do think that like there is something crazy about the art world where you can get a message from a huge collector family and they're like, we're going to buy all your work. And it's like, holy shit, you could just get like plucked up from the gutter. But that could also happen when you're 80, like Alice Neal just got her retrospective and it was like, she had been working her whole career, like totally would like forego food for her children to buy art supplies. And finally got recognized in her 80s as somebody who was of cultural importance to the art world. But then there's other people who get blown up when they're 25 and then kind of like fall off in their 30s. Like it's crazy. We spoke a little bit earlier about the the perception of value in the art world, because there is so much perceived value and like there is this market that is dictated by the collector that like if you're a big name collector and you buy all of my work, for example, you now own 100% of it. And now you have created a like marker of significance in the art world that like you've attached to my name. So now all of my work has 10x'd in price. Which is like no other industry in the world. It's insane. It's like I can't buy all of IBM computers all of a sudden. And then like now IBM computers are worth twice as much. It's like, it's just not a thing that can happen. So there is like this element of chance, right place, right time. But I hope and think that like being consistent, hardworking, blah, 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 like authentic, genuine, like finding a voice that is unique to you and being authentic to that will pay off, because how can it not? But there is also the element of some rich collector loving your work and finding you or whatever, that it happens, or not getting recognized till you're 80.
Or ever.
Yeah.
This is a good segue into the final question I'd love to ask you, which is a common final question I like to ask, which is how you think about the word success. In me hearing your story, it seems like your favorite thing to do in life, certainly one of them, is just to have an uninterrupted calendar and just to be able to go, like to play and to create, and that there is something so meaningful about that you just endlessly seem to enjoy.
Yeah.
How do you, given the randomness of the financial component to the art world, the status component to the art world, especially in a place like New York, how do you think about the word success as it applies to your life, your career?
Yeah. I talk about this a lot. So I was asked, like, if I were to have like a small town gallery and I got to paint as much as I wanted with zero recognition from the art world at large, would I consider that successful? And like, part of me is like, not really, because like I hate that I want to be just like have some cultural significance to what I'm doing. And I think that's ego, honestly. Yeah. But like, it doesn't mean it's not true. So like, I do feel like I want to be a part of like a real cultural scene and like contribute in some way. I think that's really what it's about, the ego, yes, but I think I want to contribute to the conversation of the art world at large in some way. However, that said, if I were to be able to make solid income from work, from selling work, without like strings attached or without any pressure from galleries to create X, Y, and Z, and I had like unlimited bandwidth to just like go for it, yes, totally successful and like living comfortably. And I don't need to be a millionaire, but like living in a way that is in harmony with kind of the lifestyle that I want to live, which is modest, and just living off my work, that would be ideal. However, the cultural significance part would be a cherry on top, because I think that there is the possibility to like not have that cultural significance and live comfortably. But I think and I don't want to be famous necessarily. Like there's nothing about that I really admire or want, but I do think that the nod from the academy, if you will,
the
like
recognition,
of like, you've done something that is just a part of the larger cultural scheme in the long stream of the art world would be really cool. And like, I don't know what that necessarily even looks like. Does that mean being institutionalized? Does that mean some sort of like what, and how does that kind of, how does that marker of success, quote unquote, come? And it's like, does it come in the form of like a museum retrospective? And like, that would be end of career anyway. So, I think there is some level of success to which I already am grateful and like astounded that I'm able to enjoy, you know, like the fact that I do get to sell paintings at a level that most artists never get to achieve is incredible to me and mind blowing. And like, I am eternally grateful that people like my work enough to pay money for it. And like, that's wild. The fact that I get to be in the studio sponsored by sales is wild. So like, at what point does success is like enough, I guess? And I guess the goalposts always keep changing. Like as my career keeps developing and like what that looks like is always going to be changing. But for me, I think there is a certain amount of success I've already achieved that is beyond my wildest dreams. Like sometimes I will be in the studio and like sitting down, like, how did this happen? This is insane. Like asking college Tucker if this, like looking around, like if this was what you thought would be the case, never in the shadow of a wildest dreams, you know? And that's cool. And like, I think like sitting in that feeling and like recognizing how like lucky and how fortunate I am in that is really cool.
Yeah.
That said, like I think the goalpost always changing is kind of par for the course of really being alive, I suppose. And it's like a human condition thing. It's like I'm always going to want the next thing. But I mean, if I were to live off of work comfortably, check, success, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not that far away.
Great answer. Dude, this was awesome. Thank you.
This is great. Thank you so much.
You got it.